Every good villain has a few characteristics that makes them more than just a shallow Scooby-Doo monster of the week. People like Thanos because, well, his plan is pretty dumb, he really believes in it. And even though he's cruel and basically a mass killer, he gives off the vibe and the feeling that he genuinely believes he's doing what he's doing for a better future, for a greater good. He has a cause that he believes in. In his mind, it's not just an excuse so he can have a power trip and just kill a lot of people. The best example for that is when, at the start of Endgame, we see him that he retired at a farm after what he did, after he already accomplished his goal. That proves that at the end of the day, it wasn't power or selfishness that was motivating him, but a genuine sense of duty. As crazy as that sense of duty was, it just goes to show that a goal or a motivation and the way that goal and motivation are portrayed are very important to an antagonist. And when we're looking at Agreggor, neither of those are shown. He doesn't really have a goal. Yeah, really. Think about it. He wants to get the power of the Andromeda 5, so he has enough power to then get the map of infinity and use that power so he can get to the Celestial Sapien, which would give him further power. All he ever wants is to get power so he can get a stronger power so he can get a stronger power. He never actually has a visible goal, a reason for why he wants this power. That just isn't very interesting. Every great villain has a motivation beyond accomplishing a goal or achieving certain power. Zahir from Legend of Korra wants freedom.
The idea of having nations and governments is as foolish as keeping the human and spirit realms separate.
You've had to deal with a moronic president and a tyrannical queen. Don't you think the world would be better off if leaders like them were eliminated?
Pain from Naruto wants to achieve peace.
What about my family? My friends? My village? They suffered the same fate as this village at the hands of you Hidden Leaf Ninja. How is it fair to let only you people preach about peace and justice?
Light Yagami from Death Note wants justice.
Kira has become law in the world we now live. He's the one who's maintaining order. I have become justice. The only hope for mankind.
Amon wants equality. Doofenshmirtz wants to take over the tri-state area so he can fill the emptiness in his heart. And also he wants a good relationship with his daughter, just as a side goal. Even Vilgax, who is otherwise a 2D character, wants power so he can conquer the universe. And in Alien Force, we even see that he has a certain sense of duty towards the people of his planet, and even a pseudo-nationalism towards them. Agreggor, on the other hand, doesn't really want anything. He doesn't feel like a real person, he doesn't feel interesting or nuanced. He just feels like something the plot threw in that Ben can overcome, or something to set up Kevin's character arc later in the series. He's just an intimidating, one-dimensional character. Speaking of which, Kevin actually just jabronis him in like 5 seconds. It's hard to sell me on a villain that you're trying to impose as cunning, smart, intimidating, and powerful, when one of the main characters beats him within 10 seconds max. He was built up as being a menace for half of the season, and the main characters were struggling with him for the other half of the season. It's just not very smart to do that to the overarching villain of the last 16 episodes. It's especially jarring when Kevin later on gets easily defeated by Ultimate Echo Echo, which doesn't only mean that Kevin technically could have beat Agreggor at any point in time if he wanted to, really, but it also means that Ben with Ultimate Echo Echo could have also defeated Ultimate Agreggor at any point in time, and especially he would have been able to defeat normal Agreggor. What that manages to do is put into question why wasn't Ben able to defeat Agreggor beforehand, and the only reason I can come up with is either lazy writing or lazy writing. Those are the only options. It was just a plot convenience. Another important thing for a villain outside of the intimidation factor or ideology / motive are connections, contrasts, and parallels to the main characters. Some of the best villains out there are connected or parallel the main protagonist or one of the main protagonists in some way or capacity. A good example of that is the contrast between Gwen and Charmcaster. While they are connected by magic, they parallel each other's actions. One using magic for good and the other for mostly evil. Another good one is a contrast between Kevin and Ben in the original series. Kevin poses the question of what if Ben had literally no morality and care for others while using his powers? And perhaps the biggest one is between Vilgax and Ben / Grandpa Max and Asmod. Vilgax wants the Omnitrix for war and conquer, while the Omnitrix was originally designed by Asmod so that aliens can walk in each other's shoes and see their life through other people's or other species' eyes. And Max and Ben use the Omnitrix, or I guess team up together, to save people instead of trying to conquer and kill. The only contrast / connection I could make is the fact that both Kevin and Agreggor are Osmosians.
You can't do that! You know what it'll do to you!
What? Because I'm Osmosian? Because absorbing energy causes insanity?
Yes! Stop before it's too late!
Lies.
However, that plot point is kinda acknowledged but never really dove into or really touched upon on any deeper level. You could argue maybe in Kevin's own arc that is more developed, but that doesn't really have to do anything with Agreggor and his arc in Ultimate Alien. Another thing that a villain needs is to be entertaining. Even the most one- or two-dimensional of characters can be fun to watch just by the sheer amount of entertainment they radiate through the performance. Look at Scar, for example, from Lion King. He's not a complex character, even in the slightest. He's just kind of a evil guy. However, the way he's animated and the voice performance of the voice actor elevates him so much that he's considered one of the greatest animated villains of all time. Or even a better character. Look at Heath Ledger's Joker. I personally think that Joker is a good character anyway, but the performance of Heath Ledger literally elevates him from just a pretty good, pretty decent villain to one of cinema's greatest antagonists of all time in popularity and in everything. Go anywhere and you would probably never find a person who didn't enjoy Heath Ledger's Joker. It's that entertaining. His psycho charisma is off the charts. Or to give a more recent example, look at Homelander from The Boys. He's perhaps the most popular villain right now on social media. And the character itself is pretty good. I would say even very good. But everyone remembers the performance. The performance is what everyone remembers because it's so damn entertaining and great, and it shows so much emotion. All the memes that come up from The Boys and from Homelander are because of the facial expressions and acting of Anthony Stark. While a villain can be basically saved by how entertaining they are, Agreggor is not one of them. He's nowhere near as entertaining as anyone I mentioned here, and he's more or less a kind of a bland bad guy in terms of his personality. And it's not like they couldn't have made him entertaining. Look at Madara from Naruto. While he does have an ideology and an idea for his goals, most people remember him because of how entertaining he is. So even if Madara didn't have this complex idea of the world, he would have probably still been loved just for the way he's acting and his voice actor. While Madara has a voice actor and a character that you like to have fun with, Agreggor is just a worse Vilgax, essentially. Another problem with Agreggor, and this is a big problem with him specifically, is that he doesn't really appear. Even though he is the big bad of 16 episodes or something like that, he barely shows up at the end of the episode to basically win. But we never get screen time with him. He always just is at the end, comes, wins, and leaves. You know, which is pretty giga Chad, but from a writing standpoint, we never get enough time with him to appreciate his character, or even spend any character at all with him, bro. He's barely in the show. And I think that really hurts him, because you need to spend time with your villain if you want to make it good. You can't just have a villain who pops up for like 2 minutes, unless he's very well written or very entertaining. You can't do that with a villain. It just doesn't work. Something that I will give Agreggor, however, is that he does have a great design, and I'm specifically talking about his ultimate Agreggor form. It just looks great, and his powers are also great, and his voice is pretty good actually. I do like Agreggor's voice. It's very nice.
And now, the ultimate power is mine.
Well, I criticized him, but how would I have wrote him if I could have? I think the first thing I should give him is a motivation, which in this case is the revival of the Osmosians, which in this plotline I'm making were most extinct, outside of obviously him, Kevin, and a few others here and there, possibly. Which makes sense in the show because he's only using robots as henchmen, not actual individuals. So that would be a nice tie-in. But his motivation can't be all good, because otherwise there wouldn't be a conflict. Ben would just agree with him. So Agreggor is still this vicious psychopath that wants to kill the Andromeda 5 and absorb their power. That doesn't really change. But because I think you could make a fair argument that sacrificing the life of 5 for the lives of millions of billions is an understandable situation and goal, and you might even start supporting Agreggor, I would say to that we need to make the Osmosians not be black or white. We need to make the situation more complex. So, in my view, we need to make the Osmosians those dictators. They subjugate planets. They use their powers to absorb energy from other planets until they end up being dead, or something along those lines. Maybe they enslave other species. Make them be bad people generally speaking, obviously not all of them, but at least on a planetary scale, they are dictators, which it's a conflict of interest. We have Agreggor who wants to revive his people, but he goes about it very wrongly. He wants to kill other people, so he's wrong for that. But also we find out that the Osmosians, and this can be a plot twist, at first we might think the Osmosians are like good people, and then we find out that they were actually dictators or whatever. So that adds nuance to the situation. Would you revive a group of people, a race, species, whatever, if you know they're going to end up killing themselves later on and enslaving? And that gives Kevin his own dilemma. At first, he could be on board with Agreggor maybe, you know, sympathize with him, wanting his people back just like his father. You can introduce Agreggor with a question to Kevin. Do you want me to bring back your father? And Kevin can sit there and really think about it. And this fluctuation between good and bad, between this gray area of morality for both Agreggor, Kevin, and the Osmosians can feed into Kevin's next arc, where he actually becomes kind of a bad guy. So Agreggor's goal could be something that he wants the Celestial Sapient power or the Map of Infinity or whatever, so he can have this power to revive his people, which they're bad people, so that's where the conflict comes in. That's where he's wrong. He probably shouldn't do that. And if you agree that he still should or disagree, doesn't really matter, because at least it's a gray area. It's a moral dilemma, and it makes the character way more interesting. Even if you agree with Ben in the situation, which obviously would oppose Agreggor, or you agree with Agreggor, at the end of the day, it makes the situation so much more complex than it was in the show that I don't really care who wins in this altercation, because the storytelling is so much better, in my opinion.